Letting everybody in the room, Tiana and Greg. As soon as I find the button. Good evening, everyone. We're going to give everyone until about 6:02 to join the room. If you haven't, and then you can please mute your microphones for us. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Samantha Terry, and I am here for NPU University, as you all are as well. Tonight's course is Building Permits and Accela for Beginners, and that falls under our planning track. So thank you for joining us tonight. First, our classroom rules. Please keep your microphone muted until we get to the Q&A portion. And even then, we will call on people based on their hands being raised in the chat. Also, grab a pen and paper to keep notes and feel free to grab a snack. We are here roughly for 2 hours. Please keep your cameras on in order to receive course credit, especially if you are taking this course to get the Citizen Planners certificate. Also, to ask a question during Q&A, raise your hand to get in the queue, and we're going to show you that on the next screen. And please, 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 please keep in mind all questions must be relevant to course content. I know sometimes you may want to ask something that's very specific, and then it might take us down a rabbit hole. If there's a question that you want to ask our instructors directly, we will provide their information so that you can follow up with them afterwards. In order to raise your hands, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a reactions button. Once you click on reactions, a pop-up box will come up. And on the pop-up box, you'll have the option to select raise hand. Once you select that, it will actually give us a cue as to what order you're in, and we will call out people in order to acknowledge them and ask their questions. We understand that you might want to put your questions in the chat. The problem is we can't monitor those and scroll all the way back up. So when we get to the Q&A part, we just ask that you write your questions down and raise your hand and ask when called upon. So tonight, our instructors are from our wonderful Office of Buildings located at City Hall in Suite 3900. We have the director of the Office of Buildings, Gregory Pace, and then we have the assistant director, Tiana Leonard. And we may be visited by our project manager, Elizabeth Elizabeth Johnson, who is in the office of the commissioner. So now I'm going to pass it over to my lovely colleagues. Greg, Tiana, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. It's kind of late. Around dinner time for some. Thanks for having us. My name is Gregory Pace. I am the director of the Office of Buildings. My office comprises, basically, is the Office of Permitting. So you're here for permitting one-on-one, so to speak, how to obtain a permit and our process and those types of things. With me is the Assistant Director of Development Services, of our Development Services team, and that's Tiana Leonard. We'll kind of tag team, go back and forth with it, and I can't recall, Samantha, did you have questions during the presentation or afterwards?
We're going to take them in the end so we don't get stuck. So once you all actually finish your presentation lecture part, we'll start taking at the end.
Okay, so yeah, with that stated, I would advise those, if you have questions regarding specific slides, kind of jot them down so that you can refer back to them when it's over with, and they will wind up answering them within the presentation towards the end. So without further ado, Tiana, you want to add anything or introduce yourself?
Thank you all for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we are able to give you some valuable information that you'll be able to use now and in the future. Samantha, are you going through the slideshow, or would we be doing that?
You all do it so we can avoid saying next slide. So you all have the capability to share the screen.
Okay.
Give us a second.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to remember. So I have the sorry about that, Sam. I thought you were going to be sharing it. We didn't have that queued up. So just give us a second.
My apologies, y'all. When I have multiple windows open via Zoom and Teams, my computer freezes completely. So also, for those not aware, this class is also a really good class if you are following us on our Plan A journey. Just to give a little background, we are in the process of doing our rewrite for our comprehensive development plan. So this is a really good course to take if you're trying to get, more information, you're not familiar with the processes that we go through.
Okay, we're there. Just give us 1 second. Again, I apologize.
Mr. or Miss Kumar, I guess.
Hey, yeah, this is Swapan Kumar. Just a quick question. The class will be recorded and will the recording be shared with participants?
Good question. Yes. All of our courses that are on Zoom and Facebook are uploaded to our YouTube page that night, and they're available for anyone to use and watch the next day. So yes.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
That was 2023.
And I see another question.
Search. Still not the inbox. It ain't came in there yet either.
Miss Barbie.
Yeah, I wanted to know, what is a certificate, the Citizens Planner certificate? What's that? Like, what do you need that for?
Okay, so that is an option for some of our, well, all of our residents and business owners in Atlanta that want to be savvy and consider themselves, we'll call it planning savvy. You just take a series of courses that fall under the 4 tracks that we offer in our courses, and it gives you a certificate that's signed by our commissioner and the mayor, saying that you have taken all these courses and you are somewhat of a subject matter expert based on you taking these classes. And if you're interested in actually signing up for the certificate, you can go to our website, npuatlanta.org, and click under NPU University. There is a drop-down menu that will show up, and then you click on Citizen Planner Certificate, and it has all the directions as well as the link to the application, which we stopped taking applications for this year, July 1, and we go as far back as 2021. For classes that go towards the certificate for this year. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, I'm sorry, you said that was 4 classes that you needed to take?
No, there's several classes
Oh.
that fall under our 4 tracks.
Oh, 4 tracks. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I believe they are ready to start.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So this is our presentation. You want to go ahead and start? You can give it info.
This is, basically, again, welcome to the Office of Buildings, Permitting and Inspections presentation. I'm Director Gregory Pace. This is Tiana Leonard, and we'll go through the process of our presentation. This is the Department of City Planning Office of Buildings mission statement. We utilize the city design book, which has 5 pillars: ambition, nature, equity, access, and progress, to create a mission statement that we feel is our mission of what we need to do. And that is, our ambition is to change the nature in which customers obtain permits, to provide equity and consistency in processes and reviews, allowing unlimited access to staff, and to progress in best-in-class customer service through relationships, not regulations. And so our permitting process, this is a overview of the workflow of how that works, and I'll allow Tiana to get into more details with it. But for the most part, there's an intake process. Then we go through plan review. Once the reviews have been approved, it's ready to be issued, at which time we gather certain documents that are required, then we issue the permit.
Okay, the next couple of slides are going to go through this in a little bit more detail. So intake is basically where the project is submitted to the Office of Buildings. Now, of course, the Office of Buildings is the quote unquote permitting office. However, there are some instances where the projects will have to go through the Office of Zoning and Development first, if there's any type of entitlement that is required. If you're in a historic district, you would have to go through the historic approval before you can submit to us. A big thing that causes some significant delays is when someone attempts to submit a project to us and they haven't obtained the approval from the necessary pre-permitting agencies. It puts a block because there's a 48-hour SLA to accept the projects, SLA service level agreement. So there's a 48-hour window for us to accept the project. If you submit a project to us that requires prior approval from another agency, you will be denied and you'll have to start the process over. So basically it's just adding unnecessary time to the process itself. Once you submit the project, we review it to make sure that everything is complete. We make sure we're not doing a plan review, so to speak. We're just looking over things like a general overview to make sure that all of the necessary materials required for our plan reviewers to look at it are included. Occasionally, an application will be placed on hold if pertinent information is missing, and you have 10 business days to get that information back to us before we close an application out. Once we deem a project acceptable, we will invoice the initial fees. That's a big part there too, because a lot of times we get people calling saying, well, I submitted this permit application 2 weeks ago and there's no movement. Well, there's a deposit that's required for payment, and communication goes out to the applicant of record, advising them that the payment needs to be made before we can route the plans for review. So once you've submitted an application, it does not get routed for review until the deposit has been paid. Once we receive the deposit, the plans are then routed to all of the necessary review agencies. Depending on the scope of work on the project, the plans will be routed to just generally, it's going to be the buildings reviewers, the arborist reviewers, site development. If it's a new house, it's going to go to sewer capacity and zoning. Those are typically the 5 reviews that you deal with when working on a residential project. And I know you guys we're talking with the MPU, so we're not going to go as deep into the commercial piece, but for residential, it is those 5 agencies. The plans are routed to those agencies. The reviewers look at them and make sure that they review them for code compliance. We use the International Residential Code, IRC, for residential plans, and we are in the 2018 version currently. If it's a townhome, which falls under commercial, and it's greater than 3 stories, that is the International Building Code, or the IBC. And again, that's also the 2018, correct?
That's correct.
2018 version. Once the plans are reviewed, occasionally things will go on hold. Maybe something is missing, maybe there's something that you are proposing to do doesn't meet the code requirements. So the reviewer will place the project on hold, send you red lines, and let you know you've got to address these things before I can approve it. Once the approval has been granted, the project comes to my team, the development services team, where we assess the final fees. The fee that you pay up front is just the deposit. It's typically half of the permit fee, or half of the building permit fee, not including any external agency fees, like site development, or if you have more than 3 or more additional plan reviews, there's other fees that will be added as well. But the deposit is usually half of the building permit fee. And once the plans are approved, we assess any outstanding fees, and we require payment of those fees along with the documents required for issuance. There's another slide that I'll get into that's going to go over the issuance documents in detail, so I'll spare that until then. Once the credentials are submitted and fees are paid, we move to issue the permit. Pre-COVID, permit issuance meant the applicant or customer or contractor coming into our office and obtaining a paper permit card and their paper plans with the official stamps stating that they are approved. that we have completely moved away from the paper issuance process. Everything is issued electronically. So truth be told, from start to finish, there's no need for you or anyone else to come into the office to pull a permit or whatever the case may be. The only benefit to coming into the office is if it's an express permit. An express permit has our limited categories, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the express permits can be issued over the counter same day. So that would really be the only benefit to coming into the office, unless you just want to see us, of course. But the only benefit to coming into the office is if you're trying to pull a simple permit for a fence, a shed, or something of that nature, then it would behoove you to come in because you would get that permit same day versus the 3-day express permit timeframe. I spoke a little bit about the outside agencies. Again, when you're dealing with a residential project, you deal with the arborist, which is under our department. The Department of Watershed Management the Department of Watershed Management Site Development. They deal with your, of course, site development, erosion control, water runoff, green infrastructure, etc. And then sewer capacity and things of that nature. The State Fire Marshal, Department of Agriculture, solid waste, kitchen, county health kitchen, those are really more so tied to commercial projects, but the Office of Zoning and Development is going to review all projects. And then the Department of Transportation, they get involved when you start dealing with sidewalks and curb cuts and driveway aprons. The Department of Transportation issues a separate permit for curb cuts, driveway aprons, and sidewalks. We do not issue those permits through our office. And then the Department of Parks and Recreation, this is a big one. If you're dealing with a tree that sits on city property, that would go through the Department of Parks and Recreation, whereas if the tree is on private property, it's reviewed by our arborist. So there are some instances where someone submits a plan to build a new house and one or many of their trees are on city property and they need to be removed. That's going to be reviewed by the Department of Parks and Recreation. This is a video that shows how to check the status of a permit, but I'm going to go over another slide that we've added new this year that talks about Accela. So I'm going to skip this for now, and we'll discuss this in the Accela tutorial. Okay, this one? No. Okay. I tried to pass it off, not yet. So things to know when picking up a building permit. Placarded, excuse me, placarded properties is if a property has been deemed as uninhabitable, unsafe by the City of Atlanta Code Enforcement, which is not to be confused with zoning enforcement. Code enforcement is a part of Atlanta Police Department. Zoning enforcement is under our purview. So that's a big, big difference that a lot of people don't realize. So placarded properties, when a property has been placarded, that placard is issued by the Atlanta Police Department Code Enforcement. In order for you to demolish or fix, reconstruct, rebuild, repair, do anything to a placarded property, a placard release letter is required before we can issue the permit. I've seen people get all the way to the point of issuance and not realize that this letter is required, and it takes some time to get in contact with the staff over there in order to get that letter. So it's very, very important to start this at the beginning of the process versus waiting until the end. Homeowners. As a homeowner, you can pull a permit yourself. You do not have to hire a contractor, but there are some distinct rules that apply. The first is it has to be your primary residence. You cannot pull a permit as a homeowner to renovate a property that you intend to sell or rent or any of that. It has to be your primary residence. Additionally, you have to agree that you will live in that property for 2 years post the date of the certificate of occupancy. So not 2 years post the date that the permit is issued, 2 years post the date the certificate of occupancy is issued. So once construction is completed and we have passed all your inspections and issued your certificate of occupancy, you have to agree, sign an affidavit stating you will reside at that property for 2 years after that date. If for any reason you attempt to pull another permit at another address within that 2-year time frame, as a homeowner, you will be denied. We will not allow you to pull any permit for any other residence as a homeowner within that 2-year period. Of course, you can pull additional permits for this address. You know, you built the house, now you want to add a driveway, or you want to update the driveway, you want to put a fence, put a pool, whatever those things are. For this address, it's perfectly fine, but any other address, it will be denied. When you are pulling the permit, and again, this kind of goes back to our pre-COVID days, occasionally the homeowner, not occasionally, most times, if a homeowner is pulling a permit as a homeowner and they can't get here or couldn't get here, because again, we're talking about pre-COVID, then they could send in an agent for them to act on their behalf. There is a document that we have, it's called a contractor's agent affidavit, but that affidavit applies to both contractors and homeowners. It would need to be completed by the homeowner or contractor, giving the agent authorization to act on their behalf. Of course, a contractor can always pull a permit for the homeowner, and in my opinion, it's suggested. When you pull a permit as a homeowner, you take on all of the liability and responsibility of the subcontractors that you hire to do the work. Whereas if you have the contractors pull the permits, their licenses are subject to whatever. So if they do faulty work and God forbid the house crumbles, you have recourse. Their license is at stake. When you pull the permit on your own and take ownership or responsibility, now the liability falls upon you. And I went over the agent for the contractor. Okay, so this is what a placard looks like. This is the placard that we spoke about a few slides ago. Again, it's just, please note that if you are purchasing a placarded property, or if a property that you own has been placarded, it is required that you get a release letter from the police department before you can get a permit. And then if you are looking to demolish any property, whether it's placarded or not, a rodent letter dated within 30 days of the issuance of the permit and a sewer plug are required. A couple of things that I want to hit on because I don't believe it's included in this slideshow. How long a permit is valid? We get this question a lot. Once a permit is issued, it is valid for 180 days from the date of the last activity. Activity is deemed as issuance, approval, or inspections. Once you are issued the permit, you are required to have regular inspections. Whether you pass or fail the inspection, each inspection gives you 180 days from the date of the last inspection. So just continue to have your inspections regularly and your permit will stay active. Demolition permits are very different. Demolition permits are only good for 60 days. If a demolition permit goes beyond 60 days, you will need to start the process over again, submit a new rodent letter, submit new plans to get the permit, It's basically like the first time never happened. So demolitions, 60 days, standard permits, 180 days. This is the affidavit that I spoke to that is submitted when a homeowner is pulling a permit on his or her own behalf. It's an exception affidavit that basically states, I am exempting myself from the contractor licensing requirements as the homeowner. I am basically taking ownership of all of the work that is going to be done and hiring subcontractors to do the work. Again, it is your right as a homeowner to do it, but I advise against it. It just makes sense to have a contractors pull the permits. Yes, they do charge, but you've heard the saying, everyone's heard the saying, you get what you pay for. It just works out better for everyone involved. And of course, when submitting this document, it does need to be notarized. We talked about these. These are just images of the affidavits that we spoke about earlier. The exception affidavit and the agent affidavit authorization. With a contractor, when you do hire a contractor, we require them to submit a current business license. The business license does not have to be in the city of Atlanta, but it does have to be in the state of Georgia. They have to have a current contractor's license issued by the Secretary of State. One thing to point out here, we don't want, anyone can go to the Secretary of State's website, type in a contractor's information, and it will tell you whether that contractor has a valid license and the date that it expires. It gives you all of that information. This is all public record. However, we cannot accept that. Like, we've had people try to submit screenshots of that. We actually need the physical card that was issued to the contractor by the Secretary of State, and that's for the protection of the contractor. Because again, anyone can go to a website and pull up any contractor's information and submit it as their contractor. We need to see the license that is issued directly to that contractor. In addition to that, we need their state-issued photo ID. And these are just some images of the affidavits that are required. Okay, your turn.
So once the permit's been issued and you can start construction. Generally, I know that depending on the scope of work, watershed management likes to have a pre-construction meeting on site prior to you starting work, depending on the scope of work, prior to starting construction. And I believe the arborist also sometimes requires a pre-construction meeting as well. Both of those can probably schedule at once, but a lot of times it may not be feasible to get them both out there at the same time, since they are from two different agencies. One, the arborist, of course, is within the Office of Buildings, that's outside of the parks on private property. And the other is with Department of Watershed Management, which is site development. Once your permit's been issued, you start construction, you have to call in inspections regularly through the process in which you're building. There's a foundation footing inspection, there's framing inspections, insulation, etc. This is a process in which you can call in those inspections. You can do that by email, and you can do it by phone, which is text message, a text prompting process. You can also do it through Accela as well, which we'll go over when we go through the Accela portion of the tutorial of this class. You can hire a third-party inspections company to conduct your inspections for you if you want to do them in a more time manner, in a more sequential manner that you deem to have someone inspect right away. Our inspections are scheduled and they must do an inspection within 48 hours, 48 business hours. So once you schedule an inspection, within 2 days, you'll have an inspection scheduled for you, and you can do that at that time. Go ahead.
I was gonna add to the third-party inspections. While you are able to schedule third-party inspections, the building permit fees that we spoke to earlier include the cost of city inspections. So if you opt to go with a third-party inspector, you're basically paying double for inspections. We're not gonna give credit for you hiring a third-party inspector. That is your choice, but the inspections are included in the City of Atlanta permitting fees. In addition to that, we do review third-party inspection reports. However, we do not check or inspect third-party inspectors' work. We only inspect their reports. So with that being said, quote unquote, buyer beware. If your contractor is pushing you to do a third-party inspection or whatever it is, you can always call in an inspection from the City of Atlanta's inspectors. It's a part of the permit fees. I recommend it. Again, if time is of the essence and you're trying to get through the project more rapidly, I understand utilizing third-party inspectors, but you paid for City of Atlanta building inspectors, and we're there for a reason. So
yeah, and I will add that the third-party inspections program, although we don't follow behind them, we do conduct audits and we do random inspections of the inspections. Now, once a third-party inspection has conducted an inspection, they must submit that report to our office, to this. There's an email address that's dedicated strictly for that. And the inspectors have 2 days to review that third-party inspections report to make sure that it's valid. Valid meaning that it's from an inspector that has the license to conduct the inspection for that specific inspection type. So you cannot have a plumbing and mechanical inspector conducting an inspection doing an electrical inspection, electrical rough or electrical final inspection. So we'll follow up and we'll also look at those as well. Go to the next slide. Obtaining a certificate of occupancy. That's all up under the Department of Development Services team. So I'm going to let Tiana give you the details on obtaining a certificate of occupancy.
okay, so with the certificate of occupancy, first things first, there's only a CO or certificate of occupancy, and I'll refer to it as CO moving forward, but a CO is only issued for new construction, the addition of heated space, and if you are changing the use of a space, so a conversion. Those are the only reasons why we would issue a CO. If you have completely renovated your home with the same footprint that was there before, just all new from the ground up, meaning a full gut, and you just did everything new on the inside, you still would not get a new CO. You would get what's called a CC, or Certificate of Completion. The reason being is because the CO is only issued one time. It's issued based on that initial construction. Again, unless something is changing, meaning you're adding to the square footage or you've torn it down completely and now you're rebuilding it bigger or whatnot with a different footprint. In order to obtain a CO or a CC, you must pass all final inspections. All final inspections include all of your trade inspections, so your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, all of those must have a final inspection. Your building final inspection, your erosion final inspection, which ties into site development, and your arborist final inspection. You should have your site final inspection and your arborist final inspection before you call in your building final inspection. If you call in the building final inspection before the arborist or site, one of two things is gonna happen. Either you're going to fail your building final, or if they happen to pass you, because sometimes it has been overlooked, but if they do pass your building final and you submit to my team and request your CO or CC, we're gonna send you a long email, it's not long, but an email that tells you you're missing the following inspections. Please contact this number or that number to schedule said inspections and submit a new request for a CO once you've completed it. So that means, God forbid, you're closing tomorrow, you've got 3 inspections that you have to happen, and you're not gonna get those inspections tomorrow. So you're not gonna have a CO for the closing, which means the closing is gonna get pushed out, and we all know what that looks like. So just make sure that you stay in sequence with the inspections. Make sure that all of the inspections have been conducted before requesting the issuance of a CO. The CO requests are all done by email. You cannot request a CO over the counter. COs must be requested via email, and it's for, again, everything that we do is public record, everything that we do is tracked, and the way that we track the COs and CCs issued is through the email address, which is displayed on the screen currently, dcp-oob@atlantag.gov. And the subject is just as simple as CO request for, include the street address and the permit number. And in the body, I'm requesting a CO for the above stated address. It is just that simple. Once the email is received, it is processed within 24 business hours. So if you send it to us at 5 p.m. on Friday, you will not get it Friday. You will get it Monday. So that's that.
What is exempt from a permit? So you can find this online as well. There are certain items that are exempt from a permit that you can basically just go ahead and start working on. And these items are listed here. We looked at the cost of man hours to process what we used to have several years ago. It's called a general repair permit, and it included a lot of these things. And since back then, we passed legislation and decided that these items that are listed here are no longer needed for a permit. A permit is not needed for them. So you have several items, and again, they are located online. You can probably do it. You can go to the City of Atlanta's website, and you can actually go to the Office of Buildings and do a search for exempt from permit, and it should bring you this information up.
Because it's covered,
Okay.
I couldn't figure it out.
And one thing that we do want to point out on the bottom of there is let you know that historic districts and SPI districts and landmark districts are not included in this exemption. So those within a historic district or landmark district and SPI districts require you to still get a permit regardless of the type of work you're doing. They have to see. Challenges that you face when working without a permit. Now, I know there are those that will, you may find people in your neighborhood that will decide, you know what, I don't need to get a permit, I'm gonna go ahead and just do the work. Some of the issues you're gonna come into, the challenges they're gonna come into, all of the individuals here probably on this NPU are very, very concerned and care about their neighborhoods. So they will see the people working. They have the opportunity and access to look in Accela and look online to see if a permit has been issued at that address. And if it has not, contact our office and let us know, hey, they're doing some construction over here across the street at such and such address. We'll get an inspector out there and we'll issue them a stop work order, which means they'll be delayed in their construction deadlines. If they had some already allocated, they will get a fine. If they're issued a citation, there's fines that can be issued up to $1,000 a day, every day that they're in violation. and they will automatically get a double fee on their permit. So whenever they do come in for a permit, it will be flagged in the system for a double fee. The citation, of course, if you get a citation, that means you have to now come to court, to municipal court. And if they do not show up for court, there will be an FTA, a failure to appear, that will be issued and signed by the judge, which means the next time that person is stopped by the police for any kind of traffic violation, or their licenses are ran through any kind of database for the police department, they will be arrested and taken to jail and brought into court at the first opportunity on a weekday. The disadvantages, the same thing to unpermitted work. One of the things that I will state is, and even as Tiana mentioned, she continues to mention, you get what you pay for. If someone does work to a property and for whatever reason we don't find out, we don't catch it, that property, that structure can be deemed unsafe. It more than likely will not obtain a new certificate of occupancy if they've done some additions to it, or if it's a commercial project, commercial structure, and they've converted the space, or they're using it for something that was not permitted originally. The CO will not reflect the use, so they won't have a certificate of occupancy. And there's a possibility that if they've closed up the walls and finished it out, and they come in and try to obtain a certificate of occupancy or obtain a permit for the work that's already been done. Let's just say they've added a new bedroom to it with a bathroom, and it's complete and finished, and now they're doing a permit after the fact. Someone purchased it, and you purchased the problem just as much as you purchased the treasure that you may have bought. But if for whatever reason you find yourself having to get a permit after the fact, you will be required to either hire an engineer to certify that addition meets the code, or you'll have to go through forensic inspections, which is where you will have to cut open the drywall, expose all wiring, all framing, all insulation, plumbing, and mechanical work, so that our inspectors can inspect it to verify that it meets the code. So those are some disadvantages to unpermitted work. And, I just say, if you're purchasing a property, buyer beware, do your homework, always do your homework. Our office is here to assist any and everyone. You can call our office and say, hey, I'm thinking about purchasing this property. Can you tell me the latest permits that was issued on it? You can do an open records request for that information. You can even find out whether or not what you want to do with the property is allowed. The owner of the property can tell you what they want to tell you in order to sell it. It's up to you to do your due diligence. And sometimes the real estate agents, they just want to get their part of the sale. And so they're going to just sell you the property. They may not be doing their due diligence as well. So I would just advise that you do your own homework when purchasing property. Projects involving trees. I'm gonna let her go ahead and speak.
Oh, wow. Okay. So of course, everyone knows that Atlanta is a city in the forest, and we have trees that we aim to protect. The goal is to protect the canopy and get it from, I believe it's currently at 46%. The goal is 50%. And as a result of that, our arborist department is very diligent in ensuring that if a healthy tree is to be removed, it is thoroughly investigated, and anyone who is a citizen has the opportunity to appeal that tree being removed. So first and foremost, if you're submitting, let's just say you're building a new house and the the land has trees, healthy trees that need to be removed, you will have to submit you're gonna have to submit a tree protection plan for the healthy trees that are not being removed. You will have to show calculations. You'll have to go through public notice. Again, that's the posting periods. You have to mark the trees with an orange, and the trees to be removed with an orange X. And that, I don't know the periods for orange and yellow off the top of my head. Orange is, no, it just recently changed.
There's a posting period for all trees. There's, I believe, 10 business days for the yellow sign posting, and 10 business days for the orange sign posting, and I think it's 5 business days for the yellow sign posting. Except 5 days for the yellow sign posting. So those that has to be that is by law, and they cannot circumvent that. There is no expediting that time frame. It is something that must be done. And if there's an appeal on those trees, that appeal hearing must be adjudicated before the plans can be approved. So your tree protection plan is required. You have to show calculations of any trees that are being removed. There's a recompense fee that may be required to pay. With that, there's a formula regarding that. You must also mark all those trees with the orange X in order for that to occur. And, then go through your posting period. Again, if no appeal, then the plan will be approved and all the departmental reviews will be conducted and move forward. The tree ordinance, the arborist review, that's a whole nother class in itself, which we're trying to put together. So I know the NPU director has been waiting on that one, so we're trying to put that one together. That one will come forth at a later date. And currently, they're actually going through a rewrite of the tree protection ordinance. We're on phase 2 right now, and they've started those meetings, and they've been meeting with with selected public entities involved with this process, both for those that are advocates for the trees and those that are builders and contractors. So that's going through the process right now. There is a website. I'll find the website and put it in the chat if you want to know more about it and get more involved with it.
And in a nutshell, if there is a tree that you need to be removed for construction or otherwise, tree removal always requires a permit. So if you need to remove a tree, you need to obtain a permit first. And this is just going over projects with no tree impact. You still have to submit a tree protection plan and show calculations. There's an affidavit that you can submit that says no trees will be impacted. And once the project is completed, you will still go through that arborist final inspection just to confirm that you have adhered to the plan in place. Code busters. So this was established by our former commissioner as a means of being able for constituents to be able to report violations that are happening within the city. We are building our zoning enforcement staff. We're very, very close to being fully staffed. Not quite there yet, but we're getting close. But at one point, within the last couple of years, there were only 4 zoning enforcement inspectors monitoring the entire city. So there really wasn't a way for us to do proactive work. Most of the work that we did as related to code busters was reactive. So we established this website and our email address and phone number, which this phone number is not correct. No. And
we can put it in the chat.
Yeah, we'll put the updated phone number in the chat. This is an older slide. So we'll put the updated number in the chat. But when you spot someone working without a permit, you can always check Accela, and again, we'll go through that in a little bit, to see if they have an active permit. If they do not have an active permit, then you can submit the complaint either via email or by phone. Sometimes the complainant prefers to be anonymous and they'd rather not send an email, so they'd rather call it in. That is perfectly fine. Even if you submit an email and you request anonymity, we will allow you that. We're not going to post any of your contact information in the complaint if you don't wish to have it posted. Be vigilant. If you see something, say something. Yes, sometimes people chalk it up to, you know, quote unquote, nosy neighbors or whatever it is. But again, if you see something, say something. You're protecting the integrity of your investment. And with that being said, I recommend, if you don't know, I mean, if you call us and you find out, oh, they actually do have a permit, okay, then everything's good. But if they don't, you could be protecting the next person that was going to buy that house and it's not being built to code. So again, if you see something, say something. So these are some helpful takeaways. There we go. Okay, so helpful takeaways. Don't start work until the permit is issued. That's a big one. If you submit an application to our office, you're going to get a permit number. Just because you have that permit number, that does not mean that you have a permit. The permit is, once you've received a notification from our office that your permit has been issued, and that notification comes via email, along with instructions of how to download your permit card and approved plans. Until you receive that, you do not have a permit. You're going to save yourself time, frustration, and money if you just wait to start your work until you have a permit. Provide details. You know, in the everyday world, less is more is the common phrase. No, more is more when it comes to permitting. When you're submitting an application, let's just say you want to put up I don't know, you want to build, lay new floors and put new cabinets, and you're thinking in the back of your head that you want to paint the outside and change the shingles, but you don't think that's important. You just want to, the main thing or the biggest part of your job is the floors and the cabinets. You submit that application, we review it for that, issue you a permit, and you go outside and you start changing the shingles and painting the outside or doing whatever it is that you want to do. You're going to get stopped, because I've asked everyone, if they see something, say something. So someone's going to see it. They're going to say something. You're going to get issued a fine, a stop work, and it's just a headache. So be as descriptive as you can. You know, I don't care if you tell us that you're getting a new dog as well. Just be as descriptive as you can so that we have everything that you're planning to do, so that it's all included in the review. That way you don't get stopped along the way. We want to help you get to the finish line just as much as you want to get to the finish line. Next one, communicate. Let us know if something is changing in your plan, or if you've been issued a permit and you think you might be able to do something without having it revised. Just talk to us, ask us, and we're going to tell you, because I don't want you to assume that you could do something and then you start it and then you end up in a headache situation. Respond and return revisions, correspondence, and documents timely. It probably should be like number 1A or 1B. The reason being is a lot of times people talk about how long the permitting process takes. But the one point that is left out often is when we meet our service level agreement and get the review done in the time frame allotted, 3 to 5 days, whichever one it is. If you don't get us back your revisions in a timely manner, then that only prolongs the process. Once you get your revisions back to us, because it took you 30 days or 60 days or 90 days to get the revisions back to us, that doesn't mean you jump to the front of the line of everyone else that submitted them before you. The same service level agreement applies. So just make sure that you're being timely with correspondence and documents. And lastly, ask questions. If you don't know, ask. And don't guess, because that is the worst thing for any situation, especially if you guess wrong. This is a list of department contact, a list of department contact information. I will leave it here for a second so you guys can take a picture of your screen. But it's also on the city's website. But this is kind of like a quick, go-to. Okay, and Samantha says she's gonna send the deck, so that's great. So the next slide asks questions, but before we go into questions, I wanna go through the Accela portal really quick with you all. Say that again.
So you sure you want to do that? Let me forget the question. No, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on for me 1 second while I get there. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and I will, Samantha, are you okay with us answering a couple of questions before we open up the Accela slide, just to give me some time to pull that up?
That's absolutely fine. I can start with the hands if you want me to while you're pulling it up.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Kumar?
Hi, I have a question on historic district work. You mentioned prior to submitting for a permit, you need to get clearance from historic district. How do you go about doing that? And also, how do you determine if the property is in fact in a historic district?
Okay, so to answer your question, finding the historic district, you can either go on the city's website and check your zoning through the GIS. And there's also the residential, gosh, I forget the name of it. But there's also a portal that we have on Accela, on city's website, that allows for you to find out what the zoning of your property is. If it begins with an HC, your zoning district says HC, that's a historic district, or an LD, that's landmark district. And the office is the Office of Design. Doug Young is the director, and the assistant director is Matt Adams. I think, Samantha, you should be able to give them that information, put possibly in the chat. If not, I can look for it as well and try to put it in the chat for you. But you contact that office, and that office will be able to tell you what you need to do.
Thank you. And lastly, just want to commend you. I recently applied for a building permit, had all of the things you mentioned. And I got to tell you, I was very impressed with everybody I dealt with. And it sailed through literally in a matter, and it was a comprehensive permit, but it sailed through literally within 5 to 7 days. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That we're striving to cut our timelines down. And one thing I did not mention is we've done some restructuring within our office, where there were work streams. We still have the work streams, but a lot of our administrative services were embedded in those work streams along with the plan reviewers. We pulled all of those administrative staff up under one area, which she is over now. And so that development, and they're called the development services team. That team does all the intake and routes, and they kind of follow the permits through the process. And now the managers of the plan reviews, all they have to do is concentrate on their plan reviews, getting the plan reviews done, completing them, and making sure there's some code interpretations that are needed. They can give them that attention. So that has greatly helped. We've had some numbers where we've been kind of tracking this and trying to see what improvements we've made thus far, but we've gone from an average of, I think, 80-some days.
170 days for a single family residential permit.
Permit.
So a brand new single family residential permit before our reorg
Restructured.
was 170 days from start to finish.
Average.
We've dropped that down to approximately 30 days. So significant improvement. And I have the, Sam, for sake of time, I do have the slides pulled up. It's not a slideshow, it's a PDF, but I'll go through it. And we want to get, this is very quick. And I know that there's lots and lots of questions, so I want to go through this as quickly as we can so that we can jump into and get to as many questions as possible, if that's okay.
Yeah, get to it.
And this is basically instructions on how to use the Accela, our online permitting portal. Of course, you'll see the website there. Samantha will provide you all with copies of this deck as well. She was given that. So at the end of this class, she will send all of this information out so that you have this information.
Okay, so the first thing is the website itself. You can reach the Accela website from the City of Atlanta's webpage, but if you're just typing, if you just want to go to it, the website address is at the very top. All applications to our department are accepted through this platform. So whether it's for a building permit, whether it's for entitlement, whether it's through historic preservation, whatever the process, the arborist, all of these applications are submitted through this platform. You are required to have an account if you would like to submit an application. You also are required to have an account if you want to review information in this portal. Now you can see information without a login, but in order to download and view what is there, you will have to create an account and log in through your account in order to see, and that's for open records tracking purposes. Fees can be paid online by anyone, whether it's you, the registered user, or whether it's someone else. Maybe you've created an account and you're doing something for your mother or someone else, and they don't want to give you their credit card information, so they can actually log in themselves and make the payment. We do not accept payments in our office specifically. All payments are made either through the Accela portal or on the first floor through the Department of Revenue. Right, okay. The functionality is based on the user account information and the project permissions. So if you're trying to submit, let's just say a mechanical, electrical, or plumbing type of permit, or submit for one of those types of permits, you are going to have that specialty license associated with your account. And if once that license expires, you are required to contact us to have it renewed in the system before you can proceed. Document upload and download before a permit is issued is permitted for project context only. And the reason why is because a document that is submitted for review is not public record until it has been stamped, approved, and sealed. If it's unapproved, you don't want that out there in the public, because what happens if something changes? What happens if there's revisions and we make you change something? We don't want just anyone downloading plans that haven't been approved. But once they've been approved, it's open access. Some common errors: users not logged in. I'm the homeowner. I'm trying to view, I'm trying to submit plans for my home, and it's not allowing me to. The system is not allowing me to upload these documents. Well, it's because you're not logged in, or you're logged into someone else's account, but you're trying to submit for your permit. The user is not associated to the record. If we have the applicant themselves, the owner, the contractor, and let's just say the architect or engineer. All of those people are going to be affiliated with the project, but your brother wants to look at it and see what's happening. Well, he's not associated with the project, so if he's logged in using his own account, he's not going to have access to the record. The other error is the license is not associated to the the license not associated to the user or expired. Again, I am Tiana. I work for Mr. Pace. It's his license, but I'm not associated, or his license has expired, then I'm not gonna be able to get in. If for any reason you're having trouble, you can always reach out to the same email that you reach out for COs and CCs, but it's dcp-oob@atlantag.gov, or our main phone line, which is 404-330-6150. Okay, so when you log into the ACA, this website here, this is the main screen that you get. There are some important points that are clearly pointed out in red. The ways to submit and create applications and cases. So you can either submit an application by clicking here or clicking here. This right here is a direct link to search for complaints, permits, historic preservation applications. So if someone is doing some work and you want to see if they have a permit, this is where you would search for that. This is where we talked about it earlier. If you're trying to submit a complaint, you would click here, and that's going to take you to, there's a link to that email address or a tab that shows the phone number. You also have the applications, forms, and checklists. So for every type of application that we accept, we have checklists on our website, and you can get to them from here. And each checklist gives you every single thing that you're going to need to submit that application, submit with that application rather, to make sure that it gets accepted the first time. And then this is the building permit tracker that Mr. Pace was speaking about. He couldn't think of the name of it, but this is where you can check building permit data. And it's also linked to the GIS website. And then here's another, this is a single link to the GIS website. Okay, so these are, once you click on create new, there's a search to filter or identify specific applications. So you can search by a keyword or term. These are the high level, so general categories. So if you think about it, you have commercial or residential or express. And then if it's going to be residential, is it a residential demo, or is it a residential new single family? Is it a commercial alteration, or is it a commercial addition? So you've got your category, which is going to be commercial, residential, express, etc. And the type, what are you doing? And then the description, details exactly what you're doing. And then this is the direct link to create the application. Let's see what's here. So in creating new, it's important if an application isn't shown, it is due to the registered account not having a current license associated to the profile to create an application. So again, when we talk about the common errors, you've got to make sure that the licensing information is accurate and matches. And this is tied to specifically tied to trades. Descriptor sub options, identify. I'm not sure what this is. This would be the point that we call in Elizabeth, but for sake of time.
Well, yeah, this is basically the subcategories of each application to identify the scope. So in essence, if you're going in this way, you're trying to find the application category, if you're going commercial, once you click the button, it opens up all of the subtypes of those applications, and that's what that does.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, sub options within the application, and menu options to view collections or manage account licenses and passwords. This is when you are, as you're creating an account or managing your account, you can edit your username or password here, add, update license information here. And it's pointed out if it doesn't populate after searching, contact staff to create a link to the account. We take these kinds of calls all day, every day. So if it's not working, 9 times out of 10, it's not you. Just give us a call and we can help you out. And then you can modify or add contact information such as email, phone number, and address. And this is.
That's your dashboard. Basically what this is once you have submitted an application or any kind of, if you someone that has several applications in the portal, you can track them through this dashboard. You can categorize them. You can kind of get a summary of each and every one of them all on one page. And that's what this dashboard does. It just basically allows you to see all of the records that you've submitted, the applications. You can group them by importance. You can select them by their record and see the progress of each and every one of them at the same time.
And project tracking, again, this is how, if you have an application in with us or a project in with us that's under review, this is how you're going to check the status. There's a menu option to check the status and any comments provided. So if something's on hold, you'll be able to see the comments that are associated with that hold. Attachments, allows for the download and upload of project documents. So you've submitted or you've been placed on hold due to revisions required, and now you've got your revisions back from your architect and you want to upload them, you do that here. Inspections, this is where you can schedule inspections, any available inspection. This is what Mr. Pace spoke to earlier. And then of course the payments tab. If you have a payment that's due, you can pay it through this portal. And again, those are the only two ways we accept payments, through the portal or downstairs in the Department of Finance. We do not accept checks through the mail. Okay. And that concludes the Accela presentation. Now for the fun part.
All right, we're going to pick back up with our questions. Again, if you need to ask a question, instead of putting it in the chat, we ask that you click on the bottom row down there. We went through those steps. Click on reactions, and then a pop-up will come up, and then raise your hand, and then we will go based on that order. Let's start with Ms. Brittany Thomas.
Hello, thanks for the presentation. I have two questions. One, can you show me exactly where you go to upload documents for revision on Accela? And then the second question is, if you change contractors, general contractors in the middle of your project, do you have to get another permit? Or can you just use the same permit number and just update the contractor information?
Yeah, so the first question again?
I just wanted to see, where do you upload revisions? I couldn't tell where to go to upload the revisions.
Okay, we'll have to pull this.
Let me pull that slide back up.
While she's doing that, the change of to change a contractor, we have a change of contractor form that you would have to have the owner fill out and the new contractor fill out. Basically, the owner of the property giving permission for the new contract, and then we need that new contractor's license information as well. And so you can do that. Is there a fee for that?
There is a $50 fee.
There's a
Okay.
You just stay.
And so this is, can you see the screen? This,
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is where you're going to go to download and upload documents in Accela.
Okay.
There's a menu. You click on that menu there where the red dot is and select attachments, and then it'll allow you to upload or download the attachments. That's what you select under there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Tiffany Dumas.
Yes, I have two questions to, one actually. First, I want to say thank you, and please give Collagenal props, because every time I call down there, he answered the phone and you know what he's talking about. The man is on point, and he's very helpful. But my question is, I'm a little confused as a homeowner. So I'm a homeowner and I'm building a new house, and I got the permit in my name, okay? And the the builder done built the whole doggone house and hadn't got no inspection. So, and I did not quite know what the process was at the time. And this was during COVID. So it just was, you couldn't reach
I'm sorry, we can't
nobody
hear
and
you.
all of this is. How does oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you now.
Okay. How does, you said earlier that when the homeowner gets the permit, they are not covered by the subcontractors like the electrician and the plumber. But I thought that, don't they have to put their license on file?
They do. The subcontractors, electrical, mechanical, they do have to put their license on file. However, they do not hold a general contractor's license. So they are only licensed to operate under a general contractor. But when you pull the permit as a homeowner, you are serving as the contractor. So therefore, no one's license is at risk. You take on all the risk as the homeowner.
They are licensed, and that becomes more of a civil matter between you and that contractor.
Okay, so yes, between me and the plumber or me and the electrician. So but
Correct.
they still have to go downtown and, well, they not go downtown, but they still have to have their license on file saying that, hey, they wired this house up.
Well, yeah, they have to, so they have to apply for their for the permits, the sub permits. However, the homeowner can apply for those as well. And so if the homeowner applies for all of those permits, we have nothing on file. But the homeowner, as the contractor, as the electrical contractor, as the plumbing contractor, etc.
I see. Okay, so the homeowner, so I got the building permit, but the plumber, I'm gonna send the plumber and the electrician down there to get their specific sub permits, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And to confirm something, so since he built it, framed it and everything, he didn't get a footing inspection, a foundation inspection, none of that. I can go, I've hired a, like you all said,
Third party inspector?
no, not a third party inspector, but I hired
Engineer?
an engineer. He came out and did an engineer letter and said everything that we needed to correct. And then once we correct everything, he's gonna come back and pass it. And then that way I can pass everything with you all as far as the footing. Long as the engineer passes it, then I'll pass with City of Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, it sounds like you're gonna be using a third party inspector, so I would suggest once he's complete that, he needs to register as a third party inspector with our office and submit those third party inspections to our inspections department. Also, I would suggest calling our inspections department I would request an inspection, honestly, to tell you the truth.
In addition to
Well, that's
that,
what
I know that you meant.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So we don't focus, because this is getting kind of like personal property type thing.
Yeah.
If you could, Tiana, put you all's contact information or the inspector's contact information in the chat, and ma'am, if you could just call them. Mr. Martin?
Yes, I had a question about the zoning review tied to building permits. And it's sort of a multi-tiered question, but sometimes before a permit application is made, there is some sort of a zoning review in the form of, for example, a special administrative permit review. In that case, is there a separate zoning review for the building permit, or does the zoning review for the building permit simply assume that it has already been done? And then sometimes when things are built, perhaps after the certificate of occupancy has been issued, a zoning violation can be created. I'm thinking specifically about things like the sign ordinance. And sometimes before the certificate of occupancy, a zoning violation can be created, something like the streetscape, and yet a certificate of occupancy will still be issued. And I'm wondering, is there some recourse there, since the primary recourse seems to be withholding the certificate of occupancy?
That is correct. We tend to always want to, we'll leverage the certificate of occupancy for any violations that are found, but we don't always catch them all. And so with that stated, if it is a zoning violation, just because the CO has been issued does not mean that the zoning violation doesn't exist or goes away, or that we pass it, so to speak. So the inspector still can go out, conduct an inspection. If they find that it is in violation, issue a correction notice and ultimately a citation if they don't correct the violations.
Okay. And so if an inspector comes out and finds that a violation exists and makes note of the fact and then never returns to repeat the inspection, should that case remain open in Accela forever?
Well, yes, it should, but the reality of it is the complainant should contact us back to determine what the status of the complaint is. If it hasn't been re-inspected, it should be re-inspected.
Okay, I mean, because I was a complainant in one such case, and it sat there awaiting re-inspection for several years and then vanished from Accela without ever being re-inspected or corrected.
Yeah, and again, as we talked about earlier, at one point in time, we had only 4, matter of fact, she's saying 4. There's a time we only had 2 zoning inspectors. We have ramped up, so a lot of those issues that we had previously are pretty much going away. If it is still a complaint and it still exists to this day, you can still submit the complaint for us to investigate.
So I should resubmit it then.
If it has not been, yes, resolved, yes.
Okay.
Lester Leslie. Okay, well, we're gonna go to Jill Travis.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. I have 3 questions and they're totally unrelated. So I'm going to do them, if it's okay, I'll do them one at a time. The first question I have is regarding Accela. And just for background, I'm the Vice President of Historic Preservation in a historic district. And so I'm using Accela to look at the progress that's going on in our neighborhood. So I'll put in the street address. I'm pretty familiar with working Accela. I bring up the information. I see, oh yes, this house that one of the neighbors has complained about, actually they have sought a permit. And then I go to something else and then I come back and I had all the information there. And now I go back and I had seen that there was a permit requested for some kind of work, and now it's disappeared. And that's happened to me on more than one occasion where even though I'm doing the same system and putting in the same address, the information that was there 10 minutes ago is now gone, and I don't know where it's gone to. And I mean, if it had only happened once, I might not be asking this question, but I know it's happened at least 3 times and earlier this week. So how does that, what do I do about that?
So without seeing, am I on mute? Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Without seeing it specifically, I gotta be honest with you, I've never heard that scenario, or I've never heard of that happening. The only thing that I can think of that makes sense in theory is, let's just say that it's like, if it's a recent application,
Yes.
the applicant, maybe it was placed on hold and they didn't submit the additional materials, so we voided the permit. That could happen. Like if someone, remember in the very beginning, I talked about when you submit an application, if it doesn't meet the requirements for routing, we'll put it on hold and say additional materials required. They have 10 days to respond. If they don't respond within 10 days, that gets closed out. And so maybe that's what's happening, but you're welcome to send me an example of what you're talking about, and I can look into it for you. And I'll put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm not going to be able to get to the chat while I ask my next question. The other question I have that I use regularly, and I sent it in, maybe I emailed you earlier today. I emailed Brittany, I think. Another thing that I use in connection to Accela is the property map viewer. And it is because I have to look at the houses for immediate neighbors. And my neighborhood has a certain number of feet. And I would go into the property tax viewer, I would put in the address, I would put the pin in the property, and then in the drop-down menu, there was an item called buffer, and it allowed me to put in the zone of how far I would go. The buffer feature is now missing. It was there a month and a half ago. I've checked it 3 times this week. I've had 2 other of my predecessors in the same role try to do the same thing that they did, same thing that I'm doing, and the buffer is just missing. How can I find that, get that back, or who do I contact about that?
Okay, and what buffer are you speaking specifically of?
So when you go to property map viewer and you put in the address,
yes,
and then you highlight it, and then in the top left-hand corner, there's 3 bars, and you hit on those 3 bars, and one of them says draw, I think one of them says point, and then it used to have one that said buffer. Hit on the buffer, then it had a drop-down menu where you could put in what your measurement was, meters or feet, and 300, 600, whatever you wanted. That buffer feature is gone.
Yeah, so I don't know if they suspended that feature or not. The person that you would have to speak to, his name is Paul Thomas. He's with our GIS department. He's director of GIS.
Okay.
Paul Thomas. And I'll try to find his email address while we're discussing.
Okay. And then lastly, with regard to the stop work process, can you give a little bit more information? So somebody complains, a stop work order goes up on the house. How do you find out what all is in the inspector's report as to why the stop work order is in place? And how do you find out the process? I mean, I can see in Accela that a stop work order is issued, but I don't, sometimes they have to go to court. I'm just curious to know what it is. Is there any way to find out where the person that's been complained about is in the process in court versus them having to go through the application?
Yeah, so there's in some of the details for the complaints are either in the inspections tab and sometimes in the documents tab. And then there's the workflow where it doesn't actually give you everything. And I also add to some stop work orders based on the scope or the complaint that's been given. A lot of times they're unable to obtain interior inspections because no one's either there or no one will allow them in. So they'll post the property. And once they posted that stop work order, we're expecting the owner to contact us, and then they'll do that inspection that way. And a lot of times they'll do that they'll take photographs and put those into Accela as their attached documents in there. And that's the only, sometimes that's the only information they'll have.
So you're saying I should be able to, through Accela, be able to see what the complaints are, assuming
they can. So the specific details are not viewable to the public, and it's for the protection of all parties. You can submit an open records request if you want to get the details, but that is not public facing.
Okay. And what about knowing what it's, whether it went to the court system or where it is in the process? Is that in Accela or is that not maintained by Accela?
That is,
That's-
that is in the seller under the workflow, but just bear in mind, if you do not see, if it still says stop work order posted or, what's that?
citation.
If, no, not citation, if it says, notice hand delivered, that's a correction notice and that's not a citation. Not until you see where it says the status is citation served, that's when it's, a citation's been served and then a court date has been, given to them.
And
And if
that,
If you
And
don't
the-
see it, and well, if you don't see a court date, you can always contact our office and we'll give you that date.
okay, and the court system is completely separate from then getting the permit.
Correct.
That's correct.
And is there a time frame for either one of
Ms.
those?
Travis, we have to, because for the sake of the time, we don't have that much time and we have like 6 people. So if you
Okay.
want to directly message them and they can respond to the remainder of your questions. Also, everyone else, please try to limit to 1 question because we do not have enough time and we do want to be respectful of all of you all's times. Todd Corley.
Hey, my question is in regard to Accela. I have gone through creating a permit request, and I see that within that it appears to be 8 sections. I saw the reference to the attachment tab, but there's one tab in there that is called application data that was not covered in the content tonight. And the reason I ask a question there is because there appear to be 2 sections within the application data tab. One that is called scope code. And in that, it makes you choose R1 single family residential and R2 duplex. But my zoning for my house is R4 and it's not listed there. So I had a question about that. And then also under the occupancy information, it makes you add a row to choose the building ICB occupancy classification. And none of that was covered in this class. And I just want to be sure I'm choosing the right one when I submit my permit request.
I don't think it's required by the applicant.
Does it?
That's usually, so number 1, the R1 and R2, those are building classification codes and not so much as zoning codes.
Okay.
So that's what that is. Yeah, your property is zoned R4, then it is still zoned R4. The R1 is that it's a single family house. That's the code for the application itself. What was it? He said scopes, that was part of the scope code.
Right, and then for that, you said something about the occupancy. Go back to your occupancy question.
Yeah, in that tab, at the bottom of it, it says occupancy information and it says add a row. And when you add a row, it says ICB occupancy classification.
So that's primarily for commercial spaces. That's not tied to residential.
Okay, so I can submit my permit without even choosing anything there.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
Nicole.
Yeah, so my question has to do with applying for a building permit for a townhouse. It's row style, so they're connected. The lot consolidation and 0 lot dividing, does that go through with the building permit or after that, or does that have to go through with SAPs? I wasn't clear on the muni code.
That's a totally separate process. That is that's over with the Office of Zoning and Development. That is one of those pre-submittal processes. Pre-permitting processes, because if you're subdividing or doing a lot consolidation, the lot, if you submit it to us and it does not match the maps that we have on file, it will get kicked out and you'll have to go over to the Office of Zoning and Development. So that process goes first, then you come to us once it's been completed, approved, and recorded.
Okay, and then you also talked about the townhouses that were over 3 stories are for commercial with IBC 2018. If it's under 3 stories with rooftop access just for utilities and solar panels, does that then classify as residential?
It's still gonna be, if it's a townhouse,
Yes.
yes, townhouses still go through our multifamily, which will be categorized with commercial, but it'll be reviewed under the IRC as opposed to the IBC if it's 3 stories or less.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Next question, Jennifer Murray.
Hi, yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank you for answering a lot of these questions. And Jill Travis had some really good ones that those of us that are at the neighborhood level. So I'm land use and zoning co-chair in East Atlanta. We have to use a lot of these tools to try and figure out how to support some of the questions we get in our neighborhoods. This was not my question, but I'd like to know if you guys would consider it a more detailed training in how to use Accela and some of these other tools for land use and zoning type activities.
Yeah, I was just about to type in the chat to respond to that, but yes, we will. We'll coordinate with Samantha and Elizabeth, project manager within the commissioner's office to try to give a more detailed Accela training, because we have been trying to put one together to just be a little bit more customer friendly and give more customer education outreach. And she also talked about doing a recording, like a recording and tutorial, and posting it on the website for everyone. So one way or the other, we will get that training out to you all.
That would be super helpful. And so here are my real questions. First one is, and I know you only want us to ask one, but it'll be really quick. When somebody submits a tree removal permit, does the arborist come out in all cases to validate that it is in fact a dead and dying tree?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do.
Okay, cool. And then my last question is on open record. So in East Atlanta, we've had a lot of development. Sometimes the houses going up seem to be exceeding their lot coverage. And it's hard to know without actually seeing the plans. So when we go into Accela and try and access the plans, I think you said earlier, unless they're approved, they don't show up. But once they're approved, we're really struggling with one particular address to even find, I'm sure the plans exist, but we can't seem to open them up from Accela. So do we have to come down to City Hall or something to try and actually see them?
So if you are logged in to Accela as a user, you should be able to download and view the plans that have been approved. So if you are unable to do that, either A, it's not an approved plan, or B, you're not logged in as a user with your user account. Those would be the only 2 reasons why you can't see a plan that's out there.
And if you still can't see A and B, you can put in open records request for viewing those plans, and they'll send you instructions on how to.
Okay, but that should not have to be required if the plans are approved and we're logged in as a user. We should be able to get them. And then we can call, would it be Paul Thomas or somebody that if we're still having an issue, or who would we contact if we continue to have problems?
So if you're having issues you're talking about with viewing the plans in Accela?
Yeah.
You can contact the general number, 404-330-6150. And anyone who answers that phone can walk you through it.
Okie doke. Thanks for your help. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Millette Watkins.
Yes, good evening. Thanks again. My quick question is, I'm working with a client who's currently under contract on a home for the historic West End, and he has already expressed that he wants to get some additions done to the home. The seller currently does have plans for the additional bedroom and bathroom. If he gives that plan to my buyer after closing, can he then submit those or find out if he's already submitted something?
Great question. So this is very tricky. So if there is, the plans are given to whomever contracted with that architect. So what they do with those plans after they purchase them is their business. Okay. However, if we have issued a permit to one owner and that permit is out there, but that owner is no longer completing that work and now a new owner is taking over, that new owner needs to pull their own permit. They can't operate off of the old owner's permit. So it's not our discretion who submits the plans or what they do with the plans, because that is their property, but the new owner cannot use the previous owner's permit.
Okay. And I think I got that before. I just wanted to verify because I knew it was different with the historic district, and it is already, it has been noted on the contract. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome.
Brittany Thomas.
Hello, I wanted to know, I've had the situation where I hired a contractor and they got permits. And then when I looked at, pulled an open record, the permit was not under the contractor name, but somebody else. Is that a red flag? I'm just trying to see what's the significance of that.
Absolutely.
What does that mean? I've heard of this twice. Like,
I can't get into that because I am not a legal analyst or an attorney or any of those things, but I can say, yes, it is a red flag. That's really all I can say about that. You can't, if you have a permit, if you hired a contractor and that contractor brings to you a permit with another contractor's name on it, that means, well, I don't want to get myself into any trouble, but yes, that is a red flag. And I would suggest if it is your property, like you own the property, I would submit an open records request for all of the documents that have been submitted for that address. That's your first step. And then that should be able to tell you the story. But again, I can't accuse or anything like that. I don't want to get myself into any trouble. I can just say that it is a red flag. And I hope that helps.
Christopher Knudsen.
Thanks for this really informative presentation. I appreciate it. Quick question. It sounds like a demolition permit works for about 60 days. After the 60 days, I'm assuming you file another permit. Would you then see it in Accela as a new permit, or would just that original be there?
It would be a brand new permit. So the old demo goes away. It's expired in our system and a new permit would be required. So you would get a new permit number and everything.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Kumar.
Yes, thank you for this great presentation. Ms. Samantha and Ms. Leonard and Mr. Pace, I'm wondering if you all could drop your email addresses in the chat box.
Yes, no problem. Excuse me, no problem at all.
That's an easy question. Sarah Thurston. Sarah?
I'm muted. Hi. My question is, I'm applying for a variance, and I've got the application. I've got the plans uploaded, but I was wondering, is there a way to get somebody to review my application with me for accuracy and before I upload it? Or because some of the stuff I don't know what the terms mean, and it seems like it would be helpful for me to just
variance
both. Yes.
It's a variance application?
Yes.
That's going to be the Office of Zoning and Development. Now, I do have some zoning, has someone identified that you need a variance already?
Yeah, so I have a small commercial property, and I'm demolishing the current structure because it's falling apart. And once I demolish the structure, there are setbacks that are required, and it really changes the whole tone of the landscape of the street. And so I'm applying for a variance to be able to rebuild in the footprint of the current structure.
Okay, so yeah, I would have you reach out to the Office of Zoning and Development. And she can put their phone number in here and their email address. Their phone number is 44330-6145. And the email address is OZD.
DCPOZD.
Yeah.
At atlantagA.gov. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Do we have any more questions? Nicole?
This might be a little off from permitting, but we've had a few residents or builders come in and they've taken over alleyways and their permits when they're showing it to us are saying not maintained or not open, which I understand when it says closed or open. Where would I go to find more information about that to assist our legacy residents that are being affected?
I want to make sure I understand the question. You're speaking in terms of an alley being open or alley being built on, or what, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, there's multiple instances where it's either being opened up for driveways, where it's been somebody's property, and there's other ones where people have already put fences up in the middle, but their surveys just say not open. And I know when it says closed, what that means versus when it says open, but when it says either not maintained or not open, it's hard to find that clarity on what is allowed to be done.
Okay, so we won't issue any permits inside of the alley. The alley is basically everyone that abuts that alley has rights to the alley as far as access, and they're given credit for setbacks. If they want to acquire that has to go through a quick claim deed, and everyone that abuts that alley has to kind of sign off on that, and it has to be recorded. The Office of Zoning and Development can assist with that regarding the lot replat or consolidation in regards to those efforts. If there is a fence in the alley or someone erects any structures in the alley, you can call in a complaint for that. Because again, our office will not issue permits to erect structures in the alley. As far as clearing an alley, we generally will not get involved with that unless they're using heavy equipment to clear that alley. If they're using hand equipment and they want to cut down the kudzu or any kind of anything within that alley so that they can have access to it, as long as they don't pour a driveway or again do any work in the alley as far as construction is concerned, we won't get involved with it. Now, if it's something that's erosion control related, site development, watershed management will be the office that will handle any complaint regarding that. But in a nutshell, if they are working in the alley where they're building a structure, you can contact our office and we will investigate that and issue a correction notice and citations to correct that. If someone has already built the fence in the alley, you can file a complaint for that, because more than likely, we didn't issue a permit for it.
Okay, so you said that the alley can be used as setback though?
Yes, everyone gets credit for half the width of the alley towards the setback that is adjacent to.
Okay, and then for one particular instance, I know this gets more direct on a personal thing. It was they actually raised the elevation of the alley by about 4 to 5 feet. So now the other homes don't have access to it.
Yeah, that's going to be site development. Yes,
site development. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions?
Oh, Lord, I can't.
I don't believe we do. Thank you, Tiana. Thank you, Greg, for partnering with us for the second year. And as you can see, there is a need and a want for this information. Everyone else, I am going to close out by updating you all on some upcoming courses we have for NPU University, as well as events. So as you can see on the screen, we have 3 classes next month in April and 3 for May. We have a new class that is next week, which is the City Built for the Future Climate Action in Atlanta. We are partnering with the Office of Sustainability for this course. You don't want to miss it. And it's actually in line with Earth. Is it Earth Month? I think it was called Earth Month. Yes. So that's Wednesday, April 3rd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can find all these classes as well on our webpage, NPU University, npuatlanta.org. Also, we have a new class in May entitled Lived Experience, Exploring Housing Affordability Through Experiential Learning. And this is actually an in-person class. We're partnering with our Department of Housing. We only have 25 slots for this class, and The class will open up for registration on April 9th. So if you're interested in taking that course, be sure to set your calendar for a reminder for that course. No, come on, screen. Oh no, it didn't show up. Okay, so we would like to thank you all for joining us tonight for this course. If you would like information on all of our courses or anything NPU related, please follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NPU Atlanta, on TikTok at NPU Atlanta, on Nextdoor at City of Atlanta Neighborhood Planning Units. And this video, as well as all of our other NPU University courses, can be found on YouTube under the handle NPU Atlanta. Everyone, have an awesome, awesome night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.